Hello, everyone. Welcome to Southeastern 14. I am Blayne Gilmer here to talk today about the Texas Longhorns. Yes, I know we usually talk SEC teams here at Southeastern 14, but guess what? One more year for the Texas Longhorns, and they will be in the SEC. Them and Oklahoma joining in 2024. And there is, because of that, because of what's about to take place for Texas, and they're going to get introduced into the finest conference in all of college football, there is immense pressure over there in Austin this year. We're going to examine how much pressure they're under in 2023. The Longhorns, Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian, all right here. Let's go on Southeastern 14. Hello, everyone. Like I said, I'm Blayne Gilmer. Welcome in here to this video on the Texas Longhorns. Yes, we're going to look at a team outside the SEC as they're coming into the SEC because there is immense pressure on them to perform this year. When you're talking about the Texas Longhorns, it can't be overstated, I don't think, how important this season is to the program of Texas, the recruiting momentum for Texas, the immediate future of a guy like Steve Sarkisian. Because let's go ahead and call it what it is. Steve Sarkisian has had his personal problems in the past, but listen, everybody has. I believe in redemption. I believe you're able to get second chances. He's turned his life around by all accounts and been able to go to Alabama under Nick Saban, had success, and now has landed the Texas job. Listen, things weren't great at Texas when he got there. He inherited a mess that he had to clean up, and he's working to do so. But 13-12 in your first two seasons at Texas isn't going to be looked upon very kindly. The Texas Longhorns are a proud program that are used to winning. And here's the other problem. You're here in your last season in the Big 12, a league that we just saw what happened to the champion, not the champion of the Big 12. They weren't even the champion. They were the regular season champion, the TCU Horned Frogs. They lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. But we saw what happened to TCU and Kansas State, the two best teams in the Big 12 this year, when they faced the two best teams in the SEC historically, Georgia and Alabama, in the bowl season this year. Kansas State got railroaded by Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. And then, my goodness, the beatdown of epic proportions that Georgia laid upon TCU was unbelievable. I mean, 65-7 in a national championship game shows to me there's a gap there between the SEC and the Big 12. Also, for the 17th straight year, this past year, the SEC had more players drafted into the NFL draft than any other conference. Yes, more than the Big 12. So I think that is something that you have to look at if you're Texas and be like, okay, we're about to go into a better league here. And we have not won the Big 12, the league that we've been in, since 2009. Texas is not a program that you would call on a just meteoric upward trajectory rise right now. There's a lot of questions still, but even with all the questions, there's so much money over there at Texas. There's so much talent on that roster, and we're going to examine all of it in the schedule and hear what's coming up for Texas. So let's take a little bit of look backwards before we look forwards here. All right, so talking about SEC ties, you go back to that 2009 season. That is when Mack Brown and the Texas Longhorns lost to Alabama in the BCS championship game. And, since that point, they were 13-1 that season. It has been a downward spiral for Texas. 2010, 5-7, 2011, 8-5, 9-4, another 8-5 in 2013. Mack Brown is out. In comes Charlie Strong. He ends his tenure never having won more than 6 games in a season. That was disastrous. 6 wins, 5 wins, 5 wins. Tom Herman comes in 2018. It hits a high water mark, 10-4 Sugar Bowl victory over Georgia. But then after that, in his year 3, 8-5, year 4, 7-3, he's out after the COVID year. In comes Steve Sarkisian, like we said, 5-7, 8-5. So Texas is definitely looking to step things up a bit and try to have success in the 2023 season. Now let's look a little bit at the schedule here. I'm going to throw it up. You've got Rice at Alabama, Wyoming at home, at Baylor, Kansas, a much improved Kansas team, what Lance Leipold has done there. And then, of course, Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl for the Red River Shootout. Rice has JT Daniels, yes, on his umpteenth different school that's going to be there coming in to play Texas. So, hey, that's at least going to be something to watch there. But Texas is just so much more talented than Rice. They should take care of business. We know that Alabama got taken to the brink by Texas last year. And if Quinn Ewers had stayed healthy in that game, the way that he was dealing early on, it's not a stretch to say Texas would have won that football game if they'd been healthy there, and still should have won it there at the end of that game. So Texas is going to be going into Tuscaloosa, definitely looking to avenge a tight loss from last year. But the problem is you're going into Tuscaloosa, and Alabama knows that you probably should have beat them last year. So Nick Saban and the Tide, nobody holds a grudge like Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, I say. So, when it comes down to it, I'm sure Alabama's going to be amped up for that game. But the rest of these here, Wyoming at Baylor, yes, Baylor has been a good team over the last couple of years. But if you consider you're a program in Texas that's ready to Urban Meyer called this roster pound for pound, player for player, the most talented in the country. If you consider yourself that type of program, if you consider yourself ready for the SEC, then you go to Waco and win. And, TCU did it last year, found themselves in the college football playoff. So Texas needs to be able to do that. And of course, we know the Red River Shootout there at the end. I'm not skipping over Kansas completely, but we all know what that is. Texas, they are a more complete team than Kansas. They just have to take care of business being at home. And then, of course, you have Oklahoma before the bye, and we know what kind of rivalry game that is. That is even a more intense rivalry game, I would put, this year, because whoever wins this one between Texas and OU is going to have those eternal bragging rights for your last matchup inside the Big 12. And then you're going to have the bragging rights on the trail to say, hey, we took care of business against our rival last year, Oklahoma, or against our rival Texas, whichever one wins that matchup. But Texas, it is an immensely huge stretch right there for them when it comes to, when it comes to at Baylor, Kansas at home, and then neutral site against Oklahoma. Like I said, Alabama is going to be favored in week 2 at home. Don't think it'll be favored by a ton. I mean, it could get up as high as by the time kickoff comes around. I mean, I think it's going to be less than a touchdown favorite, because let's put it. Urban Meyer said that Texas has one of the most talented rosters in the entire country. Well, just go look no further than the wide receiver core. I mean, Xavier Worthy, world-class speed. Adonai Mitchell, we've seen him make huge plays for Georgia the past 2 postseason. Transfer from the University of Georgia, comes back to his home state of Texas. He put the dagger in Alabama's heart in the national championship a couple years ago with a great catch in the end zone. And then, of course, the same thing to Ohio State on that last drive there with Stetson Bennett. So they get a proven guy in clutch situations in Adonai Mitchell. Jordan Whittington is a just phenomenal athlete. A guy like Jonte Cook comes in as a freshman to contribute. They've got Isaiah Nayor, who's going to come back from a an injury, and then DeAndre Moore, another talented freshman. They have so many talented freshmen that are going to come in on this recruiting class, including Arch Manning that we've talked about at quarterback. But Arch Manning is not going to be playing this year. This is Quinn Ewers' team, and Quinn Ewers has all those receivers to throw to. Plus he has Jatavion Sanders at tight end. Jatavion Sanders is a guy not quite as big as a Darnell Washington, but when you look at that number 0 on him, like Georgia had last year, Jatavion Sanders needs to have that kind of impact. You see the young man pictured here. I mean, just he needs to be physically imposing in the run game, and he needs to win matchups because he is a matchup problem for people in the passing game. Too big for safeties, too athletic for linebackers. Got to find a way to get that man the football. Jonathan Brooks and Jaden Blue at running back, they're trying to – that's going to be the biggest question. How do you effectively replace Bijan Robinson? Bijan Robinson goes number 8 overall to the Atlanta Falcons. Tremendously high pick for a running back, but it just shows the talent that he had. It just seemed like that talent was somewhat underutilized at Texas. Even as great a career as he had, it seemed like it was underutilized a little bit. Now, the pressure is high on this year for Sark and that offense, mainly because one of the biggest things was, okay, if Texas is going to get back to where they need to be able to recruit at a tremendously high level in the trenches. They did not have the type of players that they needed to compete up front. And, you know, there was a class of 2022 that Texas brought in that is now going to be making its way into the lineup here and playing a big role for Texas up front. When you look at guys who are projected to start for Texas, Kelvin Banks at left tackle, he was a big part of that class. DJ Campbell, he's in a battle right now. Is he gonna end up being a starter? But he was a highly coveted member of that class as well. Same thing for Neto Umazulu. These are guys all that came in that class of 2022 that were highly coveted guys that everybody wanted, and Texas won out on that year. Now, you know, a guy like a Cameron Williams comes in from Duncanville, huge prospect, huge offensive tackle prospect. He still hasn't cracked the starting lineup. So they've got guys who are more, I guess, under recruited, more developmental type guys like a Hayden Connor that has come in and has kind of solidified himself at left guard there. Cole Hudson, as I mentioned before, wasn't necessarily the most highly coveted recruit. So listen, you got to give it you look at it either one or two ways. Either the high profile guys they come in, either the high profile guys that they brought in haven't just done well enough to win the job yet, or you got guys that are being developed well by Texas there at the offensive line. It's a huge year for that offensive line. Going to have to make sure you protect Quinn Ewers. Going to have to make sure you're really solid in the run blocking game, because you don't have just that. You got some talented backs, but you don't have Bijan Robinson back there anymore. And they need a nice complement to that immensely talented wide receiving core. Listen, they bring in guys like in the secondary. They're going to bring in a Jalen Catalon, who you talk about SEC. Well, he came from the SEC. He came from Arkansas, talented players, had some injuries in his career, but they need to make sure that they're solid back there in the back. We know how teams love to throw the ball around in the Big 12, but it's a huge year. It's a huge year for Texas. Now let's get to the second half of that schedule. After that Oklahoma game, they have the bye week. Houston, a program that has come in to the Big 12. You know that program's going to be excited. There's been a lot of success there under Dana Holgorsen there, so they're going to have a lot of juice when they go into TDECU Stadium there in Houston, Texas. So road game that will be tough. Luckily, they get 2 weeks to prepare for it. BYU, same thing. You to the Big 12 comes in. They have to come to Austin. Kansas State, really a program that has, kind of had a resurgence here. Of course, won the Big 12 last year, so they're not going to want to get knocked off their pedestal. November 4th, a game at Texas. TCU, as we mentioned in the national championship last year, they lose a ton from that team. We'll see if they're able to sustain that level of play. But this back half of the schedule, honestly, if Texas can take care of business against Alabama, that would be massive. They would find themselves in the college football playoff picture at that point in my opinion, because I think everybody else on this schedule that Texas has, they're more talented than. They should be a favorite in all those games. And if they execute, don't turn the ball over, maintain leads, don't squander away leads and find ways to lose games late, as Steve Sarkisian teams have been known to do, get consistent play out of Quinn Ewers, because the ceiling there with Quinn Ewers is unbelievable, but can they get consistent play? Of course, he also needs to stay healthy and then formulate a good enough running game to complement that tremendous wide receiving core. I think that you're going to see Texas have a lot of success this year, but the pressure to do so is immense, because quite honestly, if they don't get up into playing for a Big 12 championship, double-digit wins this year at minimum, you may be looking to replace a Steve Sarkisian coming into the SEC. They may not have the confidence, because Texas, one thing they're not short on is money. There is a ton of money in that Texas program, and a buyout ain't nothing but a thing. They're going to go out there and they'll write a check and say, thank you, we appreciate your time, and go get another guy. Could a guy like a Lane Kiffin be attractive? You know, a guy that has been in the SEC, has been a head coach and worked that landscape, has had success, has won 10 games in the SEC with Ole Miss. You know, there's lots of possibilities out there, but I think for Sark's sake, for the Texas program's sake, for momentum on the recruiting trail, which they don't have a lot of 2024 commits right now. There's a lot of buzz, but they don't have a lot of 2024 commits right now. So we'll see what goes on for Texas. We'd love your comments, your thoughts on what this 2023 season means for Texas, what the expectations should be, and how you feel about them entering into the SEC. Listen, we got Arkansas fans that watch this channel. We've got Auburn fans. We've got LSU fans. We've got everybody around. There's a lot of programs, Texas A&M, that are going to be directly impacted by the entry of Texas into the league. Like I said, we'd love your thoughts, your comments. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. For Southeastern 14, I'm Blayne Gilmer, and we will catch you guys next time.